from 2020 to 2022 elections, states have utilized something known as Zuckerbucks. Originally, they were meant to help election officials administer elections. Now, some would say they really have been used for partisan get out the vote purposes. Can you talk about some of the effects these Zuckerbucks had in the 2020 election, and do you know how it affected Georgia in any particular way?
Sure. There was about, by the way, my last name, a typical name for somebody from Alabama. There was around $450 million suddenly contributed as tax-deductible donations to a small nonprofit that in the past had had a budget of $1 million. And then they suddenly started giving huge election grants to election offices. This has never occurred before in American history. And while they claim it was bipartisan, actually the money overwhelmingly went only to large urban districts that were strongholds for Democratic candidates. They would give very small amounts of money to other more rural counties, but the money overwhelmingly went there. This was a get-out-the-vote effort by moving the hard dollars, which have to be accounted for under federal campaign finance laws. And I used to enforce those laws as a member of the Federal Election Commission. Those hard dollars all have to be reported. But what the Zuckerbucks did is use soft money, tax deductible, that didn't have to be reported. It went to large urban Democratic strongholds, and the intention was to use it to get out the vote. Basically moving campaigns, get out the vote operations into these local election offices.
So as a follow-up to that, many states have now banned taking Zuckerbucks. Am I correct?
Yes, and they should, because we shouldn't want any partisan political organizations, political contributors. We shouldn't want anybody. I don't care whether they're on the right side, the political aisle, or the left side, contributing money to the government officials who are supposed to be administering the election. That should not be happening.
Now, in our legislation, I believe we end this tax exemption that would be given to those organizations. Okay. Mrs. Noureddin, in 2020, Georgia was inundated with mail-in ballots. They were received before the election day and on the election day, in some cases several days after the election. And thank you for your son's service to our country, by the way. Can you talk a little bit about your experience on the board receiving ballots after the election day had passed? And we only have a minute, so.
Can
you check your microphone?
If you're asking if it occurred, yes, it did.
Well, let me ask you this. So realistically, and again, we only have about a minute, realistically speaking, when should the cutoff day be for a jurisdiction to receive a mail-in ballot?
Election day.
It should be election day. Do you think it, in any way, shape, or form, decreases voters' confidence in our election process when election boards are receiving ballots weeks after the election?
Well, unfortunately, they can't control the ballots that come in late.
Yeah.
So what's your question relating to late ballots?
Just in general. I mean, do you think that voters will view that if ballots are coming in weeks and weeks afterwards, that do you think that lessens voters' confidence in the election process?
I think if a person believed that they voted an election and didn't, it would negatively impact the confidence of all of us.
Okay. Well, I want to thank all the witnesses for coming here today, and I think you've done a very good job so far. So thanks so much. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.